Hey, Ron, Maurice,
Hi, Bob. How you doing?
you guys here okay?
I can.
Okay, good.
Hi, Ann.
Hello.
Hi, Ann.
Ann, as our tradition, cheers.
Oh, I haven't got mine yet. I'm just going to go get mine while we're waiting.
Oh, you have to have that.
I know. I got to change my background though.
My background is a picture I took inside the circle at Stonehenge last August.
Oh, right. Very nice. I don't have anything loaded. I'm just going with the Aurora. There we go. I'll be back.
I don't know if this moves or not. Guess it doesn't.
Very nice image, Bob.
Thanks. I took a whole bunch of those well, 3 or 4 years ago, and I just got around to processing a few of them.
We'll all have our backlogs, huh?
Here, when we come back, so many of you marking this day with very good reason. Tonight with David Muir, sponsored by the makers of non-drowsy 24-hour Claritin. Live Claritin Clear. Rush with Claritin Cool Mint Chewables. Powerful 24-hour non-drowsy allergy relief, plus an 8-ounce sensation for your throat.
Look at that, Gary. I let you in.
Oh, thanks. That was a doorbell. That's nice. Is that new?
No, I didn't know about that. Oh, there's a new version of Zoom out. Remind me to tell everybody they should upgrade to it over time.
Okay.
Did you get those files I sent you about the 1 to 2 tests?
Yeah, I look pretty good.
Yeah, I was impressed with the teleconverter because without it, I was getting a 3-foot minimum focus distance, and I got down to 2.5 inches.
2.5 inches?
Yeah, from the front of the lens.
How did you do that?
2 very big teleconverter or extension tubes. I also shot it with the teleconverter, but I didn't use the teleconverter and the extension tubes. I have to try that tomorrow.
Okay. I'm gonna go run and get my iPad while we're waiting.
Okay. You guys drink all the good stuff, and here I am drinking grape juice.
We'll wait. Okay, so these 3 old guys are sitting on a park bench. The first old guy says, "Windy, isn't it?" Second old guy says, "No, it's not. It's Thursday." Third old guy says, "Me too. Let's go get a beer."
Jesus. Oops, here's some mitts.
I've heard a lot of golfing jokes like that too.
Just opening my got my packet of gels in the mail today.
All right.
Colored.
We're not going to get arrested with you drinking in the meeting here, are we?
We're all over 21. Several times.
The best part about it, isn't it?
Gary, you asked me to get a larger size of the Paquette forward plant picture.
I actually, when you bring it into Camera Raw, it looks a little bit bigger, so we can take a look at it. But
Okay.
when I just click on it in Bridge, it looks a little small.
Okay.
Probably because I've got a 5K screen, so it doesn't open up real big.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a sobering effect when you get a 5K screen and you go to zoom in and it doesn't move much. Hey, Joseph.
Hello, Bob. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good. Did you sell any machines today?
Actually, yeah, I did. I've been pretty busy in spite of Corona.
You guys at the top of the heap, you're always trying to stay up there.
Oh yeah.
You still number one this year?
So far, yes. By 200%, but it will go down.
Well, yeah, leader of the pack. Joseph sells custom machine tools to the auto industry from Switzerland.
Yep.
Hello, Ken.
How you doing?
Oh, I got two more coming in. Here we go. Tom and Brian. I may actually get this figured out yet.
It's good practice, Bob.
Yeah. Well, I upgraded the operating system on this thing yesterday, and there's a whole bunch of little security settings you got to go fix. And I had to do that about 2 minutes before the meeting started.
That's a nice picture you got displayed there, Bob.
Oh, thanks.
I recognize it, but I
Yeah,
know
lower
exactly where
analog.
it is.
Were you lying down on the ground?
I was shooting straight up, standing up.
Standing up.
I got really lucky on that deal. They had a tour, and I wanted to join the tour and to be the last guy in the group. And the group said, no, they wanted to stay together because they were all from the same club or something. So they took their main guide, and I had a private tour. And wherever he went, everybody else moved out of the way. So I got real lucky. Can't do that anymore.
Doug, what's that picture behind you? That looks good. That's not one of yours though, right?
Talk to me.
Yeah, Doug.
Oh,
That's my picture.
Is it?
Yeah,
Where?
Ireland.
Iceland.
Wow.
You'll remember
Ireland.
this here. Hold on, you'll see. Wait, let me see if I can move out of the way. See the girl walking there?
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
That's good. I like that.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
But it's coming through. It's coming through
I
here.
see you brought in the tech support staff.
I know.
Hold on, sorry.
So I went out a little bit ago and I got 5 bluebird eggs in a box.
Why is this?
Ooh.
So who knows when they'll hatch? And
I
a friend of mine called me and told me the red trillium
God, I hate
that I always go shoot are past. So
Doesn't matter. It's not a big
they
deal.
were early, so they didn't
What
do
about
well this
here
year.
on the little arrow down here?
We had bluebirds that looked at our nest a couple of times, and
Yeah.
then I don't think they stayed.
And the next 4 days are going to be so
There's a
cold.
little arrow here.
So cold, any wildflowers that are out there will probably not make it.
Yeah, I hear 24 degrees Friday night.
Well, it said 29. I was just watching.
Really?
Be here,
Yeah.
29, and maybe suburbs will probably be colder. Yeah,
Of course, where I live, it's always.
29
Like some
Saturday.
do, no?
Okay, do we have any more? We got 13 in the group.
Doesn't matter. I'll just forget.
Can they hear you?
Yeah, they can. Yeah, I can speak here.
Oh,
Just
I can hear you.
Well, nothing. I just thought like
Oh.
you lot don't always
I
make
thought
it
they
move.
could.
Doesn't matter. It's okay. Forget that. Thank you, though.
All right. Let's get way too small.
hey, Bob, are you to record this one as well?
Yeah.
There's recording.
Thanks for reminding me, because I have to restart that after this last deal. Where's it at? It may actually be already recording.
It is. It says recording top left.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because
How
I
do we
said,
access
yeah, there it is. I see it. I had it covered up with a window.
Hey, Bob, how do we access those recordings afterwards?
I'll send them to you.
Okay. I had something odd happen with my own private recording of the last section. It recorded the video, but not the audio.
Well, those things happen. You got the one I sent out though, didn't you?
No,
You didn't? Hmm.
maybe I just didn't open it.
Yeah, it'll be a WeTransfer, and you need to open it within 5 days and download.
Yeah, that must have been what happened.
Well, remind me and I'll send you another copy, assuming I can find it.
Maybe we shouldn't take time to do that right now. Why don't we get into the business at hand?
Yeah, let's see, what time are we at? 7:02. And what do we got? 14
Super
people?
happy we have a Zoom subscription though. I think this will be way better.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll find out if I know how to drive it. Yeah, I did get a notice today from Zoom that said that everybody should upgrade to the new version, version 5 or some such thing.
Usually when you close out of this, it'll give you that option to do it.
Okay, okay.
You know, when you go to leave, they'll tell you you can upgrade.
Okay, is Gary back?
I'm here.
Should we get started? Oh, there's Hagopian us. You don't look like Betty.
How can you see everybody that's here? Is there a way to do that?
Participants at the bottom, it says 14.
And you can see all them?
If you click on the participants, it shows
Oh, you see the names. Who's
Yeah.
there.
Oh, you want to see the people?
Yeah.
Well, you have to go into gallery view, but I don't know if you can.
I've never met Betty Hagopian, for example.
Yeah.
I think you can only do that. You can only do that if somebody is not sharing the screen. But Bob's sharing his screen right now.
Well, here,
Okay.
I'll stop that. We'll get rid
Oh,
of
that's
that.
all right. That's all right. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
No,
there
there you go. You should be able to go into,
You see everybody going across, yeah. Oh,
so gallery view gets us all in there.
oh, there.
Okay.
I'm not sure how many people have a dual monitor setup, but what's nice, whenever you share your screen, it shows up on one monitor and I see everybody else on the other.
Yeah, that's what I've got. All my windows are on the other monitor.
You guys are rich. That's all.
That's our old monitor.
That extra time to figure
You
it
can
out.
take over your screen again, Bob.
Okay, Gary, you
Who's Gary doing it?
If I take over the screen, are you still going to be able to enter people into the conference?
I think so, because I moved it.
He did that before. It was no problem.
Did he? Okay.
Well, let me move it over here and then I know I can. All right, go for it.
Okay. Let me do that, do that. Okay, everyone's seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, crap.
Looks like I received 5 people's photographs. So we're going to go through those. I wanted to make some initial comments though that, last meeting we talked about a particular tool, this artography tool, and that's one option for processing. And I had some comments from a couple of people. The challenge is to learn how to recognize which tool you use with which image that you take, and that's going to take a while. Right now, we've only talked about one tool, so at the end of the day, I hope we end up with people are going to have a whole toolbox full of different tools, and they can go in and take a look at images and say, well, I'm going to use this option or use this option, and so on. So it's not going to be just a one pony show. We'll get to other things as we move along. So be patient, don't get frustrated, and I think we'll do fine. So let me go through some of these. Take a look at my notes again.
Gary, unshare your screen for a second. I want to make sure we don't have anybody else out there.
Oops.
Okay, admit, Kevin, that's who I was missing. All right, let me get this over here. Now go share away.
Okay.
Yeah, we may have to do that another time or two for latecomers.
Okay, so the West Oakland Camera Club group knows we've got a number of people from the Rochester group here too. So let's get started.
You got 2, 3,
Two.
2.
4. Got Joseph. Oh,
Yeah.
5 if you got Kevin. He's in both.
So Maurice, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
And you sent us 2 pictures, and I like both of them. So we're going to talk about these. This is the original file, or is it? It's a JPEG, but I believe it's pretty much a copy of what your original file looked like. And then you did a smaller version. This is why I really could have used some larger images here to show this, but there's a lot of potential for this individual picture.
Hi, Ron.
A lot of things that I like about it. The horizontal banding of the stairs, the coloration on the stairs, the people, this V configuration with the people coming down the stairs. There's just a lot of potential. So what I did is I took a look at this 2 different ways. One is converting this to a black and white. And you might say, why would you do this with all these wonderful colors? But let's just take a look at it. And then another, we'll use
There's a lot of
that
depth
we
there.
had from the last meeting, the artography tool, and take a look and see what that did. So here's the black and white version.
Wow.
And this really pops. I mean, this is a wonderful street photography image.
That was good.
And there's just so much happening here. I love photographs that you can study. It's not just to take one look at it and after 5 seconds you're bored. I mean, there's a lot going on here. The people in the background, the lady walking up the stairs, this lady over here. It's just a wonderful image with a lot of things going on.
There's a lot of texture to it too.
A lot of texture. I mean, these steps are just wonderful. So here's this is the black and white version, of course. Now this is a colored version using the artography style, and this we could have gone a lot of different directions with, but I just did a quick version of it, and I didn't overdo it. What I love are the colors. This burnt umber type of color that's in the steps, and the oranges that are in the dresses. Especially this lady here, she's the star of the whole show, and then the leading lines going back into the background group. So this is just a great image, Maurice. I don't know if you have others like this from when you were at that location. Is this India or Pakistan, or where is this?
That's in India. That's that largest mosque in India that everybody visits.
So Maurice, did you wait to get the V shape for the people, or did you just snap what you could snap?
I probably, I was getting ready to take a little ride in one of the little chariots that they have, or whatever they call it. And so I just grabbed that before I jumped into the tutu to go on a little tour through Dallas.
So I'm curious, what kind of reaction did you get from people there as a street photographer? Were people smiling at you? They give you bad looks, or what kind of reaction?
Nobody's even looking at them here, except the woman way to the left.
Well, just in general, not necessarily just this picture, but
I had no problem with taking pictures of people in India. It just didn't seem to bother anybody. Nobody, said any unkind words at me or gave me a funny looking stare. So I would, with my large Canon 5D Mark IV, I had no problem with a 24-105, or even if I threw on my 70-200. But most of the time it was with my 24-105.
Yeah, Gary? Gary?
Yes, Doug.
You say something, right? When you were back on black and white, you're talking about the girl in the front being the star and everything. But if you go back, now look at those ones to the left, the ones that were dressed all in blue, the 2 girls. Look at all the texture they really add to the picture. My eye goes to them,
Yeah.
Where in the color picture, they kind of just melted into the background because it was all just.
You're right. I mean, both images are very good, and it would be a tough choice if you had to pick one over the other. I mean, as a street photography shot, this is a great shot, and as a color artography shot, I think this works very well too. there's kind of a haze to this picture that I couldn't get rid of, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It's almost like a mysterious kind of an atmosphere that day. It's obviously an overcast day, and I don't know if there was smoke in the atmosphere or what was going on.
Jerry, it's called pollution.
Pollution, probably pollution in India.
It's pollution. There were some pictures last week of India
Yeah,
since
it's
this
pollution.
pandemic hit, and the skies and everything is crystal clear. And then they showed it what it's normally like, and it's just a big haze over everything all the time.
Yeah, so congratulations on this shot. This is an excellent shot.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other shot, this is at the Paquette plant, which I've spent a lot of time down there. If you haven't gone, I highly recommend it. It's on Paquette Avenue, just about 2 or 3 blocks east of Woodward. And what's the name of our little favorite restaurant down there? The garlic place?
Yeah.
Garlic
Shawarma.
Bucharest
Shawarma.
Grill.
They have the shawarmas there.
Bucharest Grill.
Bucharest Grill, yes. Excellent.
On that street.
So obviously a very bright, sunny, high contrast day. And when you get in a situation like that, it can be very, very difficult to be able to control that kind of contrast, especially if you're looking to do these artography type images. So if you can't do it, you can always go black and white. If you can control the contrast, then you can start experimenting with other things. So this is again a little bit smaller. This is Maurice's version, and again, it's a little smaller, so you can't really see the detail. This is the black and white version, and I think we were able to tame. Obviously, Maurice has a pretty good camera here, with a sensor that has a lot of dynamic range, and you can control the contrast. And this turned out pretty good as a black and white image. I tried a couple of different styles and techniques, trying to do a color one, and this is just one of them I came up with. It's more of a painterly type even than the artography style, and it's a matter of just going through some of the presets. I think this is, I used Topaz with their, what is it?
AI.
Impressionist brush, and played around with that. So I did a lot of, if you asked me, all the steps here, I probably wouldn't remember because it was just kept going and trying different things. And I think it gets it pretty close to where we want to go, with that artistic style. But again, this
Go ahead.
Yeah, Maurice, any comments about direction? Both of these work pretty good.
Right. I kind of replaced the sky in my own shot. I put a few clouds up there and kind of darkened the 2 cars on the right-hand side of the picture.
Yeah.
On my finished product, the one that has my name on it.
So, kind of a side note, if we ever get out of quarantine where it's safe for old people to meet, we may want to think about doing a group session at Paquette. It's really worth seeing if you haven't been in there.
My next door neighbor is the president of the Paquette plant and the Model T Club of America. So we can get some special times in there when we go in and either with.
We took all the photos for their online kiosks and exhibits.
It's a great place to go and photograph. So we can get in there and do that. I was looking at different things of cropping this maybe, but I hate to, you always want to give your subject some room to move inside the thing. If we cut this too much, then it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. So even though this isn't the strongest part of the picture, I think it works still fine with the image that you have.
If you go to the smaller picture, you can see that area is kind of darkened a little bit. Well,
oh yeah, I see your clouds.
And I brought some clouds in there, brought some sky in there, a little different sky.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to sneak up on Keith's effect.
But again, with a picture like this, I think there's so many different things you can do with this. And as you get more tools in your toolbox, you'll be able to decide which way you want to go with it. So pretty good.
Thank you.
I only have some initials here. M. Bin. So
That's me.
Mike Birch. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Let's take a look at some of these. Now, let's see here. These are JPEGs, so we don't have the originals. But I love this shot of the this courtyard. Where is this? Tell us something about this, Mike.
It is an abandoned factory in Detroit near Gratiot and 75.
So is it easily accessible? Can you just walk right in?
It's not. They put floors in there and they cement blocked up the hole that was in the back of the building. It's actually directly behind Ziedman's pawn shop. I'm a contractor and I was doing some work for them about 3 years ago when I took this. So it was on a cell phone. I didn't have my my professional camera with me, but it's the best I could do.
When I first saw this, I said, wow, what, if you had a model, with a bright red dress, flowing red dress, and she was like walking through these scenes, I mean, can you imagine some of the possibilities you would have here? This is just a great setting. And I love the way the light is so soft that you can see all the textures and the details on the walls and the pictures. And you look at how nature is kind of recovering the space. You have all the trash and the garbage, and yet here come the vines, taking over.
Right.
So I took a look at this as a black and white, and I think it's a pretty strong black and white. I would love to have somebody in the picture. It would make it stronger. It's not that it's not a good picture. It is a good picture, but just the possibilities of having somebody in there doing something would have been a great addition.
This is a good example of what a cell phone can do nowadays.
So excellent. Another close-up, and I like this. One of the tricks that when you learn darkroom photography, and I learned this probably 40 years ago, is one of the last steps you do is put a little vignette on it so that your eye is directed inside the picture and your eye just doesn't wander. So that was really all I did with this picture. I think it's an interesting picture, and I just put a little vignette on it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You can see it jump right away. And you see all these reviews for lenses, and they talk about, does the lens vignette a little bit on the corners and on, how that's a bad thing. Most photographers end up putting a little bit of a vignette on their pictures anyways, whether you notice it or not. If you look for it, you'll find it. If you're not looking for it, you'll just say, yes, it's a good picture. My eye stays in the picture. And this way, your eye can just wander around too much. You want to just direct them inside. So just keep that as one of your tool options. Sometimes you can use it, sometimes it doesn't work.
Okay.
Lincoln Memorial. I stood in the exact same spot, Mike. So this is a great spot. I know exactly where you were, and the light just coming up. This had to be what, in the morning?
Yeah, about 6:04 a.m.
Yeah. The light will decide, what the subject is and everything else. So there's a lot here. I've got a whole series of these pictures inside the Lincoln Memorial. I just love the space. So what I did is I've had a little experience, doing shots inside the memorial. So this is pretty much what I thought the direction should be. We did some architectural perspective corrections, contrast, and so on. And there's a lot you can do with this. How much you want to, how contrasty you want to make it, how soft you want to make it. Those are all options for you to decide. But there's some dramatic light here. And this is a great shot. And I love the composition, with Lincoln off in the corner, and you can see some of the architecture, and there's enough shadow detail up here that you can see the ceilings and the what are those Doric or Ionic columns in the top here. So let's see, good shot. And the last is the Vietnam Memorial, and a lot of people might just look at this and say, well, it's out of focus, but it's not. I mean, it's just very selective in terms of your focusing. And I love the reflection, on the left-hand side. And I think it's a very interesting picture. Obviously, let's see, I did black and white, and I cropped it a little bit closer to a square, and I like the leading lines. So although this is not probably a good candidate for the tool that we learned about last time, this is certainly a great image. And making it a black and white, I think, might be the the solution.
Gary, do you
If-
think a tilt shift lens with a focus plane right up parallel with the wall would be of value?
If you want to get everything in focus, that's one of the options, or you could just stop down. You know, I like shots like this where there's just a very selective focus and sharpening, and you know, it kind of drifts off into an out of focus type look. It doesn't, you know, the people walking there don't have to be in sharp focus. So I like this a lot.
No, thank you.
So I mean, all four of these were pretty good. And I'm probably going to embarrass you because I'm going to tell you how good one of your pictures are here that I'm very jealous. So let's start going through some of these.
He was telling me how much he thought of it earlier today.
This is a great shot. I love this. So you were shooting with your 70-200 wide open 2.8, and it did everything it was supposed to do. Any comment? Tell us about it.
You know, it was at the new skate park in Detroit, under the Ambassador Bridge. Just these guys were hanging out there, and sunny, you know, a summer evening, and that, you know, they were very into having their picture taken. So yeah, I mean, it was just one of those moments. I was walking around, I was trying to get some action shots, and I have to say, I didn't really know what I was putting in here, and I didn't do the edits myself because I thought that was what we were, you know, going to go through tonight. So,
Well, this one doesn't need anything. It's just fine the way it is, and I wouldn't change a thing. It looks great. I love the fact that it's shot at 2.8, so it's wide open. The background's thrown out of focus. You know, a lot of street photographers like to keep everything real sharp. I don't think that's necessarily the way to go. Even this guy here is a little bit soft, but that's fine. You know, these are the characters.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
they just look great. So I wouldn't try to do anything with this picture. This looks good. And this is not the one I'm talking about, so don't get too excited.
Wait, there's more.
Another shot, and again, I didn't try to play with this one at all. I think I don't know if you did anything on this one. It looks like there's some.
I think I may have just tidied it up for dust spots or something. I think I tried to give you. I think I pretty much tried, other than some. Yeah, I don't know what I did. Some of them I did have some small tweaks too, but some.
Yeah, I love the angle of view here, your perspective. So this guy's pretty close to coming down on top of your head with his skateboard.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's pretty unpredictable around that, right?
And again, this would be a great black and white as well. So either way you can go with this, it's fine. This is Scott Fountain at Belle Isle.
Mm-hmm.
And this is evening, right?
Yeah, probably not a very street kind of scene. Maybe that's one I shouldn't have included.
No, it's an architectural shot, and if you ask Bob and Doug, we spent a lot of time over there trying to get images and waiting for the right cloud formation. And so what I did is just focused on what you captured. And what kind of audio. You have so many options once you get into Camera Raw to really bring out the subject. So I did it this way.
Oh wow!
All right. Okay.
So I love the warmth, the gold and the yellow lights coming up here against the blues. You know, if you look at complementary colors, these colors work very well together.
Right.
So
what did you do there? Put a graduated filter on the.
I don't even think I did the graduated filter. I just went in with the hue saturation luminance adjustment in Camera Raw and took the blues down a bit.
Go back
and
to
I played with some of the saturation on the yellows and the oranges, trying to get the balance the way it worked. And I think it works wonderful. Again, I didn't try any kind of topaz technique or anything on it. One of the things you have to learn is you have to know when to stop.
Yeah.
And that's going to take a while. So most people, when they're just getting into this, they're going to go overboard. And the lesson to be learned is knowing when to stop.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I've been there. Oh, right, I still am there sometimes as well.
These are some of the most difficult shots to do, these balloon festivals, because the contrast range is so high. You've got the the bluish cast from the evening light coming in, and then you got all these warm colors being blown out by the whatever they call these, the flamethrowers that are inside the balloons.
Yeah,
So-
and I know a lot of us have got this. We were, we had a club outing here, so
that
I've
last
never
year?
really loved my edit of it or my take on it.
So what I tried to do is just balance the colors a little bit, and I did this, and I don't think it's necessarily there yet, but it's a very difficult thing to do to get it exactly right, so you might want to go back and take, just the balloons because they look so good here, and then create a mask, and maybe bring, take the top half of this picture out and go back to your original, and then mask in some of the bottom parts, blend these two together.
So it's not a white balance thing then? Because I was kind of wondering
No,
about
I mean, it's such a challenge to balance the light here because you've got the, like I said, the blues and the heat being and the light generated from these flamethrowers. So it might be that you take the top half and blend it with the bottom half of this or some combination of that to see what you can do. So
right.
What if you darken the bottom so that
you can make that go away entirely if you get it real dark. I mean,
right, but
if we looked at the original, it was pretty dark in the foreground. So
Yeah.
you're right, Doug. You could probably silhouette this almost and just
almost
show-
silhouette it, and the balloons would be the subject.
Yeah, that's a good point, Doug.
Right.
That's a classic case.
On the bottom.
That's a classic case on white balance because you got a sky that's probably 7,000 to 9,000 degrees Kelvin, and those balloons are in there at 2,800.
Right.
Big difference.
So if there's other comments, chime in. Don't feel that you can't say something, make suggestions and things like that.
And I have really thick skin too, so you can say whatever you like.
Well, if you ask the guys from the Rochester Camera Group, I'm pretty gentle when it comes to critiques, but I
No, you don't need
try
to
to get
be.
to the point.
Seriously, you don't need to be.
Okay,
All right.
here's the picture.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So this is the very difficult lighting situation. It looks like it's evening. The sun is going down. It's not to the point where you're going to get that after sunset glow. So the lighting conditions are very, very difficult. And to expect anything more from your original raw file is you're not going to get much more.
Was it a raw file I sent you, or was it a bracketed DNG?
It was either a GNG or a raw file, but I was able to go back to the original settings, and I did that intentionally because I want everybody to see where we started out with this and how far you can take an image. Not to get discouraged when you bring it home, you look at it and you see this and just say, well, that's not going to work, forget it, and erase it. Don't do that because your cameras have such great dynamic range, and the tools that you have in Photoshop and some of this other software can really bring the things back. And before I jump into the other picture that we did from this, I noticed that there wasn't a lot of room down here, and that bothered me. So what I did is I added maybe 10% just by using the crop tool and doing the content to where fill to add another inch or so on the bottom just to give me some more room. So here's the next file.
Wow.
Whoa.
And this did take some time, but it was worth it because this is exactly the kind of image for the technique that we talked about at the last meeting. And I just, when you get a picture like this that works, it looks like everybody in the picture was put where they are intentionally, and it all works. And if you look at every person here, it almost seems like, that this was a movie film set up, and everybody was told exactly where to be. This beautiful little girl with her pink jacket on, and the lady with the red boots and the stroller, and people walking here. I mean, everybody seems to be where they're supposed to be. And it seems like a revelation when it happens, but it happens, and you just got to go with it.
And Gary, not only that, what's not there, because the original, there were some people standing on the left that didn't add anything to it. They were.
Yeah, I think he cropped it a little to the left, right?
On the left over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
I think when I edited it, I think I definitely did the same on the left. I definitely cropped them out. I don't think I added anything on the
It was so
bottom.
much better. Yeah.
But
Yeah, now there's a little bit more room on the bottom just to give us more space. And the secret was getting the contrast right in Camera Raw before you went into the process. If you just take that original file and take it into one of the techniques or the plugins, you're just going to destroy it. You have no chance of ever bringing it back. You got to get it right or close in terms of tonal range in Camera Raw before you take it into one of those applications.
And Gary, explain what you mean by right as far as tonal range.
You know, if you look at the histogram, make sure that you're not blocked up on the left where the darks are, and you're not overexposed on the far right side, so that you have to keep it between, I call it the goalposts. And if you look at the diagram and the graph on the histogram, you have to keep it between those two goalposts. And then soften it down, try to take as much contrast out of it. And usually what photographers like to do is up the contrast. They think that's going to help it, and they're going to start increasing the sharpness and the clarity. Save all that. Don't do it. Just flatten that image out as flat as you can make it in terms of contrast.
It was hugely contrasty, wasn't it? I think the original, wasn't it? I mean, the brights were really bright.
Yeah, I mean, there's well, fortunately this was underexposed, so that you're okay here. The highlights, you're okay. There's some lights here, but that didn't bother me. That's fine.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I mean, there was a lot of individual work after you went through some of the plugins, taking it back into Camera Raw, which is a great tool to use after you use the plugins, to just touch up some of these areas that you want to bring the highlights back in. You want to bring in more detail, taking an adjustment brush and maybe going over some of the people here and just bringing it back a little more detail in the area and the people that you think are really prominent in the picture. So I guess that's all I can say. I'm jealous. I love this picture.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's in Cambridge. That's kind of my hometown.
You just want to be there.
Yeah, it's my hometown. That's kind of where
That's your hometown. Wow.
Cambridge is where I kind of worked, and yeah.
Well, it's great. So if you have more of these, I think you can just follow that pattern. What I'll do is I'll send these back to Bob, all of the images from this, and then he can send them back to everyone so that you can take a look and see what was done. And
if I can get there.
Yeah, so I saved this one as a TIFF file, so it's.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't spend a lot of time on this, but again, it's the same thing. It's controlling the contrast here. We've got a lot of burnouts in the highlights. So trying to bring those back.
And I do have different exposures of that. I have a bracketed. Again, I can't remember if I sent you a DNG or a simple one. That's one I put in. That's one I put in Club last time, I think.
This one here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, that one. I think I did that as the cyclist on the crossing there. That's I used in Club, and it was. I think I did it as a black and white.
That's the Abbey Road lookalike.
Yeah, and again, don't be discouraged when you bring back. One of the things that you have to get right is don't let the highlights get blown out. Which in this case, it's fine. If you had probably exposed this more, you would have gotten this exposure maybe closer. Excuse me, but you probably would have lost the sky. So,
well, I have a question about that.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I was told recently, I did a workshop, and the person said that when you look into highlights and you're in your camera and it's a JPEG you're looking at, you can actually go past and actually have it blink a little bit, and in the RAW it's got more bandwidth, and you'll be able to recover the highlights. So if it's blinking, like the first set of blinking lights in the camera, doesn't mean it's overexposed because the RAW's got more latitude. Is that what you understand, or is that?
Well, you push it as far as you can to the right. It's the theory is called exposed to the right.
Yeah, I understand that, but normally what I always do, if I saw it blinking, then I would bring it back. But what I was told is you can actually go past it because your RAW file's got more dynamic range than the JPEG, which is what you're seeing in your camera. So you can actually push it a little farther than you think.
You can, but if you're wrong and you blow out the highlights, then you're gone. You're lost. It's like shooting Kodachrome back in the old days.
But no, you're not understanding my question. When you're looking at the back of your camera, you're not looking at the RAW. You're looking at a JPEG. So you can actually get away with it blinking and still recover it in RAW. Is that what that's what my understanding is? Is that what you understand, or?
He's, Tom, I know you're talking about Gerlach, aren't you?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, and Gerlach, he shoots Canon stuff, and I don't know. I questioned that too, and I'm not sure if maybe it's more true of the metering system in a Canon versus something else too.
Yeah.
Well, the rule of thumb that I use is most photographers use is exposed to the right, which means towards the highlights.
Yeah.
Take the highlights as far as you can, but stop. It's easier to recover shadows than it is to recover
I
highlights.
understand all that. I'm just wondering if can you push it farther than what you think you can.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I guess it's an experiment we could
He
do.
does, Tom. I don't agree with what he says either.
Okay.
Myself, so.
Yeah,
So-
that can vary a lot by cameras and how they're set up
It is a
too.
lot, yes.
And to explain and illustrate what I'm talking about, Ann has exposed to the right. She's exposed just to the point where the highlights are inside the histogram, and she's left everything dark. So here's the latitude that you have, because here's the picture.
Holy crap.
Oh, I like your edit way better than mine.
Oh.
Maybe it would have done better in club if I'd have had that edit.
Very good.
I
So
think these
that's-
are good examples for why editing matters.
Tom,
Yeah.
Tom, when I went to a Gerlach thing, he said that I did that a lot, and I spent more time ever coming home bringing those highlights back than
Yeah.
when I just did it so it was still within on the back of the camera.
The worst
You
case
spent a lot more
scenario
work
is
doing it, and more damage.
the worst case scenario is that with the shadows that you're trying to bring them up, you're going to introduce a little bit of noise, but noise can be controlled. Once you lose the highlights, you're in trouble and you're not going to recover. So you can
Oh, yeah, I
obviously,
understand all that. Yeah.
One
you can
one
obviously
thing
see.
one thing, Tom, I think that might be worth keeping in mind is the higher your ISO is, the more you lose dynamic range,
Yes, I know that.
and it goes pretty quick.
Mhm.
So that's another consideration.
Yeah, I always try to keep it as low as I can get away with.
So you can try it both ways and just, see what works for you.
Wow.
There's
Oh,
a couple different ways. You notice the way I cropped this, I took out there's a little manhole cover down here, and I don't think this front part of the picture really does anything.
You know what? And I just looked at the edit that I put in to club, and it was less contrasty because mine usually is. But yes, you're cropping it nearer the zebra crossing makes a ton of difference.
Yeah, it does.
Because I did include more of that front.
It
area.
You know,
focuses
there's some wonderful leading lines here going back to the church. The cyclist is just about in the perfect location. He could have been anywhere from here to here, and it would have been right. So you're fine there. Plenty of detail in the trees. The clouds still look fine. I did another crop version where I did a little bit more sky, but I think this is probably the best
Yeah,
new look.
yeah.
Gary,
I
what did you do to the building? This is just your technique where you did the orthography stuff, where you just
No, there's no mystery here. This is just this is all camera raw. I didn't do anything other than camera raw.
okay.
Bringing the highlight or the shadows up, and like I said, you have a good camera with a good sensor.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of latitude on the
A
shadow.
lot of detail in that building.
Sure
Oh
is.
yes, you can look at the.
So Gary, you're changing the crop on a number of these to be more square. What's your thoughts about aspect ratio?
Yeah, most photographers are afraid to crop their pictures, and don't be, because square format is one of the strongest formats that you'll ever work with, and back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, when people were running around with Rolleiflex and Hasselblad, the square format was very, very popular. And if you look at a lot of the Vivian Maier shots, she shot all with square format, great images, and it's so much easier to compose in a square format than it is the rectangular, especially at 3:2 aspect ratio.
I think I'm seeing a lot more square generally right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just me. If you like, I have my edit of this image on my other screen. I can share that if you want. And I absolutely, looking at yours and looking at mine, I absolutely hate mine now.
Gary, you talk about square composition, which I agree with you, but I went to a seminar with a landscape photographer, and he said there's absolutely no reason in the world to ever shoot a square.
To shoot square?
to shoot square ever, in his opinion. So
Well, that's why they have
he has a
elections.
thought on that. So, you know,
But his point was what? That he would crop it later?
no, he would never even crop it square, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Well, generations of great photographers shot with square format.
I know. Well, I'm just saying, it's just people have different opinions. So
I would not shoot square in camera. And it's pretty hard to do. I mean, you can show a square format on a lot of cameras so that you can view your image, which I
maybe
do.
that's what he was
I'll
saying.
set it for JPEG square so that I can see a square format so I can compose in square, but the raw file is always going to be the original aspect ratio of your camera. So if you're shooting with a 3:2 aspect ratio, your raw file is always going to be 3:2, but you can always, if you crop it in the camera, you can see where these lines are going to hit. If you had looked through your screen and seen a square format, you might have been able to hit these lines even better. I mean, they're good enough now, but you know, if you wanted to line up one of these white lines with the exact corner here, you could have done that. It's just a little bit easier to do. So
One of the things I like about my big Fuji being medium format is the fact that medium formats tend to be in a more square format, you know, like a 4:3 or something, and it changes how you compose the image.
Right.
you see, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, I do have a few different options in camera to change the aspect ratio, and I have been playing around with those. You know,
Well,
so
it's
I
a
have
revelation. It's something. It's a learning process, and I'd suggest trying it at least, and see how your mind sees compositions differently when you're looking through and seeing a square rather than a rectangle. You'll be amazed at how you view things differently when you see a different format there.
Right. Okay. All right.
There's a big difference shooting square for street photography than landscape, right? Like Doug, you said the guy is a landscape photographer. I wouldn't shoot square for landscape either, but for street, I wouldn't shoot it for square. I wouldn't shoot square for street either, but I would certainly maybe wind up cropping it that way.
Right.
Now, when you go out, you don't have to shoot it square, but you may want to do that as far as your final edit. You know, there's street photography in square format really works well. You just look at Vivian Meyer and some of the other great photographers that used square format. So.
Gary, and I'm watching this on my big screen TV too, and there I see this a picture in about 3 feet by 3 feet, and I can tell you it looks fantastic. You should print it that way.
3 foot by 3 foot, okay.
Yep.
So,
and Gary, a question: did you do anything to soften the clouds to make it like cotton candy? And then on the other end, did you do something to sharpen the buildings, the lines of the buildings and the trees?
I very seldom sharpen my images. I think that's one of the ways you can destroy an image is to do too much sharpening and over contrast. There's plenty of sharpness in just about any lens, any camera combination that you have, and over sharpening is one way to kill your images.
Yeah, but did you do anything in this image to soften the clouds and
Nope.
clean up the lines?
No.
Okay.
Gary, you do this all on camera or all? You said, do you ever use any of those like Nik plugins? You know. Like
Oh yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, the Nik.
And how does it compare? I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, they went out of business. I guess Google bought them about 4 years ago, and that package was, and it's still available for free on the internet. You can download it. I think Bob had trouble finding out where it was, but eventually found it.
You gotta buy it now, don't you? DxO owns it.
No, you can
Yeah,
still
there's
download the old,
Oh,
the
the old
last
one.
free
Yeah.
version,
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
and that'll get you most of what you're looking for.
I think when I did my edit, that I did it using Nik.
So how does it compare? Is it better, worse?
This
Well,
edit,
what those options give you are just, it'll show you more options. You can, whatever they have in the plugin, you can do in Photoshop on your own. It's just that it's giving you so many different options to look at and pick through, and then decide which way you want to go with your image. So for that, it's very helpful and very it saves a lot of time. So
For
but
years,
you can-
people used to rave about Nik's Silver FX Pro 2 for black and white conversions.
Yeah, I've used that.
But anyway, the free version is still available.
It kind of feels like cheating a little bit, but I have used it.
No, I wouldn't. Don't call it cheating. You're just using the options available.
Remember, Ansel Adams modified the hell out of his images in the darkroom.
Gary, I have a question on your black and white conversion.
Someone's
Yep.
trying to ask a question, but your volume is down.
Yeah, speak up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Better.
When you take a photo into Camera Raw, its color, do you convert it into black and white into Camera Raw, or do you send it over to Photoshop or Nik or whatever to do?
Great question.
That's a very good question, and I'll tell you my process that I use is when I take it into Camera Raw, I first try to go through all the basics, get it between the goal posts, get the colors right, and then just before I decide to take it into Photoshop, I click the black and white option to change it to black and white, and then I take a look at it. And if I like it, I still keep it back in color, and then I take it into Photoshop, and then I do my changes there. And unless I'm in a big hurry where I'm going to do everything right away, I wouldn't just do it in Camera Raw. In fact, I did this just in Camera Raw. I didn't even take this into Photoshop. I think this was all done in Camera Raw. And just looking at the black and white, I was convinced the black and white is the way to go. And the image, the way it turned out, looked just fine. And there's always a save option in the lower left-hand corner in Camera Raw where you can just save the file. And then when you say done, it saves your changes to the raw file as well as the file that you saved. So, but your question is good. I mean, you want to keep the color in the picture as long as you can, as long as you're interested in changing it to a black and white, because you want to use the color in your black and white conversion to get the tones that you want and the emphasis on the different colors that you want. So
Gary, do you want to maybe show them quick what the color sliders do on a black and white image that's still in color?
Yeah, we can do that. Let's.
Can I ask? Hi guys, I'm here. I want to ask, is Camera Raw Lightroom?
It's the same engine in both Photoshop and Lightroom as far as the sliders and manipulation. What Lightroom has different is the ability to manage large volumes of files and a few extra presets and things that make it a little easier to use. But the actual mechanics underneath the hood are pretty much the same.
In fact, if you do your edits in Lightroom and then bring it over into Photoshop as a smart object, all those slider bars you did will be set in the Camera Raw in the same place.
Yes.
So they're actually equivalent.
And it kind of drives me crazy that they have two different setups for, one in Lightroom, one in Camera Raw. The process is exactly the same, but the format that they use to get you there is entirely different. So I think they're at a point now where they get a lot of people upset if they went to one way or the other. People are used to it and they don't want to make any changes. So, but the effect that you're going to get is going to be the same.
Okay, so Camera Raw is another system you can download like Lightroom?
No, it's the main engine for modifying the basics of an image, and it's in both pieces of software. It's under the hood.
So Linda, if you get the photographer's package with Adobe, which has Photoshop and Lightroom, you get Camera Raw too, and you can, they're kind of interchangeable. If you go into Photoshop, you can, somebody else explain. I'm not explaining it very well.
No, that's right.
Just a different interface, the same controls in a different interface.
Yeah.
Huh.
You get both. Basically, you get both with that photographer's package, the $9.99 a month or whatever.
Yeah, and one's not better than the other. They're just a little different format. And once you get used to one, you don't want to use the other one. So it's understandable why people stick with one versus the other.
Okay.
So Gary, on this one, I wanted to ask you, you didn't correct for any of the verticals in the building.
No, because you can see it's still tilted back a little bit. I guess I could, but sometimes a little bit of tilt isn't too bad. It's and I've done a lot of architectural photography, and I've learned that a picture may be technically right where it's absolutely 90 degrees perfect, but it just doesn't look right. So sometimes putting a little bit of a tilt makes it look a little bit more natural.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, it's not horrible in this one because it's centered, I
Well,
think.
it looks good here. I think if it was straighter, it would look funny.
Maybe, especially
Okay.
with the lines of the crossing.
The last one you had was this. I think this is a nice, I didn't spend much time on it, but what I noticed here is the predominance of red.
Yeah, that's why I chose that one really to put in. I mean, it's not a great, I don't think of it as a great image. It was street and it was the red that kind of.
You know, one of the cliches in post-processing is to leave the red and take everything down to black and white, which, you know, it's now a terrible cliche in terms of doing that. So I wouldn't recommend doing it. But there might be something that you can do to desaturate some of the other colors so that you leave the prominence of the red in here, because it's an interesting thing. And you may even want to crop this right-hand side out just but there's some things going on. It's a good picture, and it's worth spending some time on.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see, who am I missing here? Tom, you there? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Yep.
You sent me
I just sent one. I wasn't sure. I didn't know we were supposed to send a bunch. I just sent one.
Well, you could. I mean, you can send as many as you like. And I noticed you struggled with one of the compositional rules, because this is your final, and you cropped so that the sign was to the right. I think when you're doing street photography, don't worry too much about the compositional rules. Street photography, you know, is almost break the rules at any time you want kind of thing. And I think there's a lot happening here, so I hate losing some of the image, you know, just by trying to make the sign appear at the 1/3 point one way or the other.
Well, it was more about the people, and that on the left-hand side and in the front were more visible. than ones over on the right were kind of not really.
Well, this is one of those great pictures where you can just study and study and study. There's so many different faces and things going on, so it's a great street photograph. And
you keep coming back to that sign, then you go and look at the people again.
Yeah. I like this one a lot. This is a nice shot. I wish you had sent some more in. You can try it for
A
next.
few years ago at the Hash Bash in Ann Arbor, and there were a lot of characters there to photograph. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I think that's the fun about street photography, is finding the characters, and there's certainly a lot of them here.
I love the girl in the center, right below the sign.
Well, that's
She
kind of why
really
I cropped it.
perfectly.
That's one reason I cropped it, because I wanted to bring her out more a little bit, because she had this great expression
Yeah,
on
that
her
works
face.
good.
If you look at the cropped image, I don't know why it's so small. I made it bigger, I thought, when I sent it in.
Well, if you're in camera raw, you could take the adjustment brush and maybe lighten her face just a little, so she pops out just a little bit more.
With your expression, you can't really see it until it's cropped, and you really see
Right.
it.
Good image, though. I like this.
Thanks.
Let's see. So did I got Jim Tenders. Go in. We did. Okay. Bob. Whoops. This looks like the original raw file, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And you tried to do one of the adjustments, and it looks like you were doing something like a watercolor kind of a technique.
Yeah, I kind of tried to reduce the contrast on that.
I'm having a
You've got to move
difficult
nearer
time.
your microphone.
Yeah, get much closer.
Tried to reduce the contrast on that photo. I'm not happy with the way this one turned out.
Well, like I mentioned last week, if you're going to use that technique, if your people in the picture are any more than 25% the height of the image, they're going to start to look plasticky, and that's probably why you got this kind of result. I think the original is a pretty decent looking image to begin with, and if we took this into Photoshop, I think all you have to. Oh, I got people in the way here. Let's see if I can slide this over.
Gary, I wonder, did he not back it off by 50% when he did the technique?
That's a possibility. One thing you could do is take your original, layer it on top of the one that you did, and then change the opacity down to about 50% and see how they blend together, so that it's not as watercolorish, I'll call it. But I mean, here again, it's a matter of, here's the goalpost that I was talking about. We're blacks are here, the whites are here. We've got some room on the high end. So, you know, we can lighten the picture up just a little bit and warm it up just a bit. So we're already looking pretty good here.
And these are the Camera Raw controls.
We've got all these controls and all these additional menus that you can go through. This, I'll show you the conversion. If we decide that we're going to go black and white, I can click on black and white and then go to this fourth item in the menus, which is called the hue, saturation, and luminance box, which when you turn it to black and white, you have all the colors here now that you can control these colors in the black and white picture. So if they have a blue jumpsuit on, I can go down to the blues and I can lighten the blues or darken the blues. I can control just that color. And this is how you use this adjustment in Camera Raw it's one of the things, the tools you can use to make those conversions and to be more effective with controlling the different colors and tones that you have in the image.
Is there a color picker like there is in Lightroom here or no?
Yes, I think there is.
Yeah, it's in the upper left on top.
Yeah, I think you can go there.
And it'll do a blend of colors. If you pick something, it'll slide all of them, I think. At least that's what Lightroom does. Is you pick the color and then it'll slide multiple sliders at once.
But generally, I make these initial adjustments and then take it into Photoshop, play around with it. I don't want to turn it into black and white too early. I'll play with it a little bit, and if I decide to go back, one of the things you can do is just make an extra copy in a layer so that you always have one layer that you can take back into Camera Raw if you want to do some changes, and then work on the second layer with some of your techniques. So I think, you know, I'd be happy with the color of black and white here. I think both of them work pretty good.
Yeah, the black and white's probably more time period.
And you can put you could do this as a sepia tone, which can give it, you know, a more of an antique look. So, good. Joseph from our Rochester club, and he was on a trip to Vietnam a couple months ago. Unfortunately, he can't get back there now, and there's no traveling. But most of these pictures, these are all pretty decent pictures, and there's two that I focused on that I made some conversions for. But a point of interest here is if you look at the EXIF data here, Joseph shot these with an iPhone. And it's pretty remarkable, the quality, the detail, the resolution, everything in the picture for, this is the iPhone 11, is that it, Joseph?
Yes, 12 megapixel.
Yeah, just 12 megapixels. So, I mean, I was drawn to this picture. I liked it. I thought the contrast was under control. It needed a little architectural perspective correction. Needed to be a little bit warmer. So I played around with it a little bit, took it into the technique that we talked about at the last meeting, and I came up with this.
Wow.
Big difference.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. So did you put a painterly look to this one? You did something with a Luminar or everything in RAW?
Not everything was in RAW. No, I used the technique. I was surprised that the iPhone file held up as well as it did by taking it into Topaz and running it through the, first thing I did is I increased this to 20 inches. And if you look at the detail here, this image is 20 inches wide, and you could print this on a you know, as a 20-inch print, and I think you would be quite surprised at the quality of the image. I think it turned out really great.
I love that. I think it's awesome.
The other image.
This one's gorgeous.
Yeah, a couple things that I didn't like when I first opened it up is this bulk of sky up here, which is just an awful gray looking ugly sky, which doesn't really work at all and there's a lot of different ways you can replace skies. So I tried to maintain, keep it close to what the original was, but horizon line needed to be adjusted a little bit. I don't think we necessarily need all this foreground here. So I made these adjustments. I did a drop shadow vignette on the top and used the color balance temperature control to turn down it a little cooler to get a blue kind of a hint to the sky. Got the horizon light right, warmed up the picture, ran it through the artography preset, and looks pretty good.
Actually, Gary, what you see and what the camera sees is never the same. And this, on an iPhone especially, the colors are usually saturated or oversaturated or overcooked. But this image here now looks more the way it was. And also not only the way it was, but also the way it feels or the way I felt when I took the picture.
Well, good. Then I'm happy with the adjustment that I did.
Yep.
So both those turned out pretty good. Any questions on this? I mean, this tells you that, you don't need a really expensive camera to get quality images that you could print to a pretty decent size.
Now he tells me.
Yeah, Bob, it's not the camera.
Okay, before I turn it back to you guys, there's a photographer that I found this week that I just had to bring in. One of the people that I told you that I'm just totally in awe of as an artist is Edward Hopper, and I think most of you are familiar with his work. But this is Christina Corral. She's a German photographer, I believe, and I just want you to see some of her images. These are photographs, and she admits in her interview, yeah, she's from Germany. She admits that Edward Hopper was one of her inspirations, and this is a really good example of taking an artist that you're inspired by, and then taking your whole approach to photography to go in that direction with a look and a feel. And I think her work is just superb. Spends a lot of time on color and composition and technique.
Notice everything is muted and pastel.
Yeah, but outfits, even like the models' outfits, they're all planned in these shots,
Yep.
right?
Right. I mean, she's controlling everything in the picture, which is something that we could do, but we're unlikely to do. But the results are really outstanding. I especially love this. I mean, if you understand Edward Hopper and some of the images he made of the bedrooms with people sitting on the beds looking out windows, and the whole idea of the loneliness and the isolation of his images. I mean, she's doing a really great job of capturing that kind of a feel in her pictures. Now this is rotated 90 degrees, but it's intentional.
Wow.
Same with this. So you can look up her name. It's Christina Corral, German art photographer. So again, seeing how most famous photographers have one particular look that they stick with. And I've told people, that's why I'll never be a famous photographer, because I've got 100 different looks and nothing ever matches. But photographers like this, a little portfolio of images, they all look alike, and they'll obtain some notoriety, based on that. So I think it's wonderful that they do that.
Gary, when we were down at the Auburn Car Museum in Indiana, wasn't the second floor there, didn't they have a thing about Edward Hopper, or had a bunch of his images?
I don't recall that one.
Okay, I was thinking they did.
So questions about what we saw today in terms of the changes and images?
I was wondering, would it be possible to show us how you fixed Ann's one image of the bike in the church to go from something that dark to that light?
Sure. Okay, that's the original. One of the ways to cheat, if you're in a big hurry, is just hit the auto button, and that gets you in the ballpark. But generally, half of these adjustments need to be zeroed out anyway, so I don't use that very often. But if you're in a hurry, you can do that. So first, I try to get the shadows. You know, if you look up at the histogram, we're way over on the left. We've blocked out the shadows. So we want to move this whole histogram to the right. And the first obvious way is just to increase the exposure until we hit the edge right there. We don't want to go anywhere past that.
Gary, point out that green bar that moved as you slid it, a green button at the top. Showed the underexposure.
Oh, okay.
Under and over.
Yeah, I can't get to it. I've got people's images here, but let me just keep working on it. Highlights, you know, we've got limited highlights here in the sky, so as long as we keep those within the range and we're not hitting that right hand.
The blinkies.
Yeah, and I don't turn on the blinkies most of the time. I've got a corrected monitor, and I just trust my eyesight on most of this stuff. But again, we're gonna take the highlights up. I'll take the crop tool, and you can see the
Wow. So you don't raise your exposure anymore because you'll start to either white out or lose definition, lose part of.
You got to be real careful, you know, as you're making these adjustments, because okay, so here we are with the color version, and we're getting close at this point. So if I go to black and white, you can start to see. And we got to be careful with global adjustments. Is when I'm using the sliders here, and I'm going to affect everything in the picture. So if I go global, I got to be really careful, because I don't want to
blow out the
burn out
sky.
those clouds. Here's the whites still over there. These textures, again, be very careful with these, because you can overdo it. A lot of times I go to the right with the texture. Texture is going to give you a little more detail. You can see that as I go to the right, you can see all that detail pop out there, but it's going to come at a price. You have to be real careful. You don't want to overdo that. If there's any noise in the picture, it's going to pop the noise as well.
So is texture a form of sharpening? Because it feels like when you use texture there, it kind of sharpens those windows and.
Yeah, it will, because that's what that texture slider is doing. So if we go into the third icon here on your adjustment tools, that's the sharpening screen, and you'll notice that we've set it 41.0 and 26, but the masking slider is still all the way to the left. And one of the interesting things about using the masking slider, most people don't use it, is that as you slide the mask, you hold down your Option key on the Mac, and you start sliding, and as you slide, the software is going to tell you where it's applying the sharpening. And I don't want to sharpen the sky and the clouds. You can see all that detail up there. That's going to bring out the noise. But as I slide it to a higher and higher number in the masking, you see that there's less and less sharpening happening in the sky, and more of it in the church. So all those areas in white are where the sharpening is being applied. And so I click that, turn it back off, and so now I have the sharpening that I want.
Just by using that masking tool, you'll get rid of a lot of noise in an image.
So I was able to bring
I've never used that before. Well, your images are so sharp, it didn't look to me like you even needed to sharpen it.
Yeah, we just left it as the default sharpening, the Adobe sharpening here. We didn't change that at all. All we did is told the software where to apply that sharpening.
Okay.
That's why those clouds still look nice and fluffy and warm, and there's not a lot of detail.
I think it was Blake Rudis in the classes a week or so ago that said he puts his sharpening at 16% or 16 value. As
And
opposed
you
to
can
just-
do the same thing with the whites and blacks. So if you hold the option key down and then you hit the slider, okay, so you can just move those until you see where you're losing detail.
Yeah.
Right. There you go.
So okay, so, oh, wow, okay.
So when you see the white, you've lost detail, and when it disappears,
Yeah, you want to just,
Correct.
that's probably as far as you want to take those whites. And see, I still don't, I want more detail in my whites. If I take my cursor over and hold it on that white, if you look up here, it's going to tell you what the numerical combination is of that. And you see it's at 246. You can only go up to 255 with the scale. And if you're printing on a glossy paper, a lot of the glossy papers, if you don't have enough texture and tone in the picture, you're not going to put any ink on that glossy paper. And if you take a look at the glossy paper and hold it in the light, you're going to see that there isn't any ink, and you're going to have a different surface texture on the papers. So if you're going to do a lot of printing and you're going to print on some of the glossy papers, the high quality glossy papers, you have to be very careful. I found that if you go any higher than about 235 in the highlights, you're not going to get much ink on the print, and you're going to have some difficulties with the surface texture on the print itself. So that's one thing you have to be aware of.
So are you setting your whites and blacks in the first part of your edit? Is that, or are we just talking about sharpening here?
All of these things, we're talking about where you're going to take your adjustments here on this main screen, and
So that's the main, okay.
we're not worried about temperature, and those are color adjustments.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this in monochrome. So I think what I did is I did take this into Photoshop, and the reason why is that I'm limited at this point in Camera Raw to my highlight and shadow adjustments, and I'm still not happy with the image. But here's one of the tricks, that if I go and say open image, and Photoshop opens, taking a little bit time here. I can now go back up to filter and go back into Camera Raw a second time.
You get a do-over.
I get a do-over. I can again take the shadows and move them up and lighten the picture. I can take I can lighten the picture.
So this is not deteriorating the file by doing this.
Technically it is, but that depends a lot on the quality of your sensor, and that's why when you start reading reviews of all the new cameras, they tell you the dynamic range that you have, the latitude that you're going to have to bring your shadows up, how much latitude you have in the highlights. I mean, if you're going to do this with an iPhone shot, you're in big trouble. You're not going to have that kind of latitude. But if you're using, one of the 36, 45 megapixel Canon, Sony, Fuji, whatever it is, some of the more recent stuff, you're going to have tons and tons of latitude, especially in the shadow areas. And again, one of the controlling factors that I worry about is the highlights. I want to have enough texture and detail in the highlights. I don't want to get that to the point where it becomes a problem. So at this point, I can get some impact here by, I'm carefully using the clarity, the texture, the dehaze, in combinations with the light, and just make little tiny baby steps.
Can you sort of get that do-over if you're just in Lightroom and you use the radial?
I don't use Lightroom, so Bob maybe can tell you whether you get a do-over. And
No, Ron's probably better than I am, but I think the answer is no as far as the do-over.
Okay.
But
like if you were using Lightroom, you wouldn't even go into Photoshop, right? I mean, that's kind of what like with Camera Raw and Lightroom is going to give you the brushes and the gradient filter to do a lot of this stuff native to Lightroom.
Yeah.
Right,
So
but
I
what I'm
wouldn't use-
asking is, he went as far as he could go in Camera Raw originally with the highlights and the blacks, if I'm under, or the whites and the blacks. So then he went into Photoshop and it allowed him to kind of start from scratch again and add even more to those two things. And I thought in Lightroom, I mean, I've tried it. I thought that's kind of what I was doing. Kind of the same thing. You max it out and is the raw image, but then if you put a radial filter over something, it gives you that option to do your whites and blacks again, and it seems like you're getting a do-over. Like you can even add.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's so in Lightroom, it's like what you said. You can make global adjustments to the entire image, and then you can use your radial filters and stuff to make selective adjustments that include, like you just said, highlights or blacks or shadows, whites, whatever.
Okay, it's not as nimble as it looks like what he's doing, but it's all I've got right now.
You
So
can get there. And it's not uncommon to have to go into Camera Raw 2 or 3 times in a workflow. And so whether you're using Camera Raw or whether you're using Lightroom, you do all of the things Gary's talking about with the Camera Raw sliders and modules to get it close.
To keep tweaking.
Right, but you got, when you're in Camera Raw, when you're in Lightroom, you're dealing with the raw image and the adjustments to the image. You're not actually changing the raw image. So whenever it shows you the picture, it's saying, I'm going to start with the raw image and then re-add all the changes you just made to show it to you. But it actually isn't modifying the raw image. And if you move it from, let's say I want to go from Lightroom and edit now in Photoshop for various reasons, if you open that as a layer in, as a smart object, excuse me, in Photoshop, that protects you from rasterizing the image, and it becomes non-destructive. So you can edit and re-edit, and you're not losing anything. If you don't do that, every time you edit and save out, you run the risk in some tools of causing destruction of your image. It's subtle.
Okay, and so you go into Photoshop not as a layer, but as a smart object?
If you're in Photoshop, it's nice to work in smart objects just because you can go back and undo what you did or do it over or make it more or less.
Okay.
But that's a little advanced from this standpoint.
The basic difference is Lightroom is more convenient, a little bit faster. Photoshop is a more powerful tool. There's so many different things that you can do in Photoshop that you're unable to do to Lightroom. So it's a trade-off as to what you want to learn. And you just saw that what I did, one of the most powerful tools to using Photoshop is going back into Camera Raw after you made adjustments and using this adjustment brush.
Like you did the dodge and burn thing there.
Well, I added some light and I added it to the church here. And this is not a global adjustment. This is a very specific adjustment just to the face of this church.
Right.
And the adjustment that I made was to lighten the church up, but it's already selected this area. If I showed you a mask here, it'd show you that this is the area that's been adjusted. I can go back in here and take the dehaze or the clarity, and because I've already selected that area, any adjustment I make here is going to affect that area that I just painted over. So if I take the clarity, see what happens to the church. Maybe that's not the right one to use. Maybe it's the texture. I can bring out some more texture.
So once you make your selection with that brush, you can play with these sliders to the heart's content.
Right. It's like another do-over in a sense.
Well,
you're adding
you're
on.
Building
You're
up
adding
the
on.
look, however
You're
want
building.
But you can do this in Lightroom as well with the brush, right?
Correct.
Yes.
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 When you're doing the pushing the options button trick with the masking tool to see what it's going to change, what would the equivalent be in Windows? I don't have an options button.
You use Alt,
Alt.
ALT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that works for the the sliders, the black, the white, and all those sliders too. So it's a great help to get you in between the goalposts. And so going back and forth, even after you've done your plugins, this is one step that I don't forget about doing. You got to do it at the end, is to really finalize that picture and decide, where do I want to touch it up? Where do I want to add a little punch here and there? something to brighten up, something to add a detail. Using that adjustment brush is really that fine tuning tool that you use at the end to get the things just the way you want it. Boom.
So Ann took a great picture. You have so much to work with, it seems, and it's so sharp and.
Yeah.
You have so much information available to you shooting in RAW with these cameras. You know, that's why so many people say, "Oh, I just shoot JPEGs."
No.
JPEG has nowhere near the amount of information in it that a RAW file has.
I always
Yeah.
tell people I'm not good enough to shoot in JPEG.
That's right.
What type of camera do you have, Ann?
I have a Nikon Z7.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's, I guess, pretty good on the dynamic range
Yep.
spectrum.
It's so sharp too. I'm so impressed with that.
You're probably better off, like you were talking earlier about, you know, exposure with the sky and stuff like that. And I totally agree with Gary that if you almost like underexpose a little bit, you keep all those beautiful clouds and all that texture in the sky, and then you can easily go in and fix it like this, because I mean it looks maybe a little dark in your shot, but unless it's jet black, you'll be able to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely obsessed with like the highlights and not blowing the highlights out. But I will say that I load everything into Lightroom, say, and everything's super dark, right? And I'm kind of used to that. But then I hit. So this is a question for you, experienced guys. I don't know if I've changed a setting in one of my preferences in Lightroom, but I'll hit the auto button, like you said, Gary, just to see what it does and see where it gets you as that initial edit, if you like. And it takes the blacks way down, and I've always got black clipping. So have I changed a setting in my Lightroom that would take it way too dark because I always have to raise the blacks?
I think if you're going to go and hit the auto button, be prepared to adjust things up or down to
I
suit.
don't feel like it ever used to do that though.
Mine always takes black down to like -40 and white's up 40. It seems like it's like almost a standard setting.
I feel like I've changed something. I don't know what I've changed.
For years, the auto tool used to overdo saturation and made the image way too white. It tends to have the vibration a little hot and sometimes the exposure too hot when you hit auto, but those are easy things to get back. Remember,
Yeah,
when you're
I mean,
done,
definitely
you
ups
got to
the
be between the
vibrance.
goalposts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My recommendations is as you get better in photography, anything in photography where it says auto, don't use it.
Right.
You're better off doing it manually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a really beginner question, and you said you underexposed, or Ron said to underexpose. That's that thing. It starts in 0, and you would set it so it's like -1. Do you know what I'm talking about?
If it's something like if I'm shooting street, I mean, it totally depends, right, on what your light is. But I mean, if there's clouds and stuff like that, that they're beautiful, like in shot, and you want to really keep that detail, you have to underexpose just slightly.
Yeah.
But that's how you do it, right? You move that to -1, like 1.
That's how I do it.
Okay.
One
if you're looking at your exposure meter, I'll go down just slightly from that. You can drop your ISO down a little bit to get, you know, a cleaner shot. There's a lot of different ways to do that. But
oh, that's a great idea.
I mean, that's how I do it.
Yeah, exposure compensation is frequently a good way to do that.
Well,
Or drop the ISO.
One thing you have to recognize is each camera company has their own idea of what the correct exposure is, and they base their ISO on that. Sony is notorious for underexposing by almost 1 stop. So what they say is 100 ISO is probably the equivalent of Fuji's 200 ISO. And you have to be careful and you have to experiment. You only know that if you shoot different camera systems. Me being a nut, I've got all these different cameras, Canon, Nikon, Fuji medium format, and each one of them is a little bit different. And there's some real issues with the different cameras, and you have to find out where their their ISO rating is and how they're achieving it. Now, Sony has good intentions. They're trying to save the highlights, and you can bring the shadows back. Fuji's a little closer to nailing it, and it seems to work pretty good. Nikon is somewhere in between Fuji and Sony. So each one of these cameras companies have a philosophy of exposure that's a little bit different. Same way with the colors. The colors on Nikon, Sony, Canon, they're all a little bit different.
A little different. Okay, now she's got a biker moving here, so if you drop your ISO, you could end up sacrificing shutter speed, right?
Excellent point. Yes, you're probably going to have to shoot about almost a 500th of a second if he's moving along and you want to get those spokes, you know, nice and sharp. You're probably going to have a higher speed to capture that.
So
Yeah,
then
I mean,
then you're better off using the exposure button, dropping that down.
Well, your speed is pretty much going to be fixed on this image, right, to get that
I
guy
might-
in focus. If
I
you don't
might-
want him blurred.
Mm-hmm.
I
But
might have
like
been on
Ann-
auto ISO here. I don't know because there were a ton
Yeah,
of.
but like, and you got the guy and your building is so beautifully sharp, you know. So if you like instead of shooting 6.3 and that guy is tack sharp and the building is blurred out, you could go to f8, f10, whatever, and that's going to underexpose you slightly, but keep this perfectly sharp. You know, me, I go to ISO is always the big thing because you're trying to obviously create something that's going to go into a magazine. But that, I mean, is just, I don't, what was your F on this? It's
I have no
beautifully
idea.
sharp.
Have you got it there, Gary?
Yeah, we'll go back and look at the original was 400 ISO, so it wasn't that high.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So let's see, shutter speed.
Shutter speed is 1/1600th of a second, but you underexposed it by 2 stops here.
Oh, that's okay.
So that happens a lot. You know, I with some of the cameras, that button is very prone to moving, and I've been caught a lot of times finding out that I'm set, you know, -1, -2, or +1, +2 without.
I
even,
probably could have shot that at, say, ISO 200 and 1/800th or whatever, right? I mean,
well, I mean, in a perfect world, we all want to shoot at 100 ISO so we get
Right.
the best possible quality. But you know, with these sensors, you know, you don't have to be afraid going up to 1600 or 3000. You'd be amazed at the quality that you can still get from.
yeah, I try to stay like in the, I don't know, for something like that, I would try, I guess, 400, but I don't like going over that much. I don't know.
But
Well,
in
at the end
this
of the
case, it's a
day-
I need
lucky
to trust it a
accident.
little more, I think.
At the end of the day, you've got to set your aperture for the way you want the artistic look to be from focus near and far. And you got to set your shutter speed to be fast enough to freeze motion. And you have to do what you got to do with the ISO. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. You're in the compromise mode.
Right. Well, what I've learned is that even underexposed, there was still so much there. You didn't lose the detail.
As long as you don't go overboard, you
Yeah,
bet.
look at the differences here. I mean, this is the shot, and that's what's select. You know,
Right.
Who'd have thought?
tons of detail, oodles of detail there.
Hmm.
Sensors are just remarkable. We're running out of, I don't know what our time limits are, but there are a
We
couple
don't
of
have
things that I wanted to mention is, you know, this is like step one in our first, you know, baby step towards going wherever we want to go. And I got a couple of inquiries about, you know, can we talk about other forms of photography, street photography? And I think that's a good idea. Part of our group, Tom is our one of our members here, and I'm going to, in my opinion, he's one of the best black and white photographers, street photographers I've run across, and I just want to
Last
show you.
name, Gary?
Pinar.
Say again?
Tom, speak up so we can see you.
I'm the old guy.
You're the old guy.
I don't see you, Tom. Why don't I see you?
Well, because I didn't. You should see me outlined on the image now because I'm speaking.
Oh, there you go. Now I see you. Yes. Okay.
He's terribly modest, but he's damn good.
No,
Oh, we're on Flickr. Okay, I got
So
it.
Tom put together this little folder of some of his black and white shots, and I'm going to flip through them pretty quick, but I just want to give you an idea of the breadth of what he does in terms of photography and creative black and white photography. Is just incredible. His eye, as he sees things so much differently. When we go out, I just keep wondering, what, he's seeing in terms of compositions. I just don't see the same things he does.
We always go and stand behind him and see what he's looking at.
I bet. I'm not feeling so good about my submissions for.
I haven't done mine yet. So.
Well, don't be discouraged.
So this is on Flickr. I'm searching on Flickr right now, and I'm not seeing you. PERNAR, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
PER.
He's got 2 Flickr sites.
NAR, Ann.
NAR. Yeah, that's what I have.
Oh. Wow. These remind me of that photographer you mentioned, Bob, in our assignments for next year.
Yeah.
He's a great shot for shadows and looking down on scenes, finding light bouncing off. One of my favorite saying is, light is the camera's pencil. And Tom really has figured that one out.
Hey, where did you originally come up with that statement? I know Max.
That's my grandson. He's 10 years old and he came up with that. I brought him along to one of my presentations and he told me that after the presentation.
Oh, it's because you're under Thomas on Flickr, not Tom. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't find you.
So again, I mean, it's
I'm running out of ideas.
Do you only shoot black and white? It looks that's your.
No.
Oh, more and more. Yeah.
Yeah.
It took me about 30 years to get a good black and white picture. And,
Not sure I have 30 years.
I'm considering maybe just exclusively black and white. I've been doing, I like this old vintage color process, that autochrome. I've been dabbling around with that lately. I just like the looks of it. And,
if you haven't been to this museum in Lansing, what's the name of that?
The Broad Museum.
Oh, it's just amazing the architecture in there and the kind of images that you can find.
The one on Michigan State campus?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, I went there, and I thought this is great. I'm excited to be there. My images look nothing like this.
I was gonna say.
I think it's a really ugly building. I don't like it.
Trust me, none of our images look like Tom's images. One of a kind.
Every week he comes up with new stuff and I try and copy it and I just can't get there.
Is a lot of it done in post-processing, all this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never know what I'm taking a picture of.
Yeah. He runs around with an 8-year-old Fuji X100 12 megapixel camera and he gets.
Ron, your pictures are amazing too. I love Ron's pictures too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so I'll stop there if you want to see more of his
they're
stuff.
great.
Thank you.
I'm following you now.
Bob, I'll turn the screen back over to you. And let's just talk in general, ask questions, where you want to go next, what you want to talk about next. But
yeah, one of the things that I think is really important, I've been pushing the creation of this group, but I want it to morph where people need it to morph to so that it's of value to the club members, whether you're experienced or inexperienced, as some way to improve your experience being in the camera club and to improve your skill set. So it's not like whatever we're showing you or talking about is a fixed thing. So keep thinking about what do you want to see? What do you want to learn? Are there new areas you want to go into? Do you want to dive deeper into some of these things we're doing? I've been a part of Gary's OPC presentations now for 3 or 4 years, well, 4 or 5 years. And we do pretty much the same thing every week, and I learn every week.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go a lot of directions. We want to make sure it's of value to you guys. And the second thing is I'd like to see additional groups or interests or events, maybe programs generated from what you're learning here. Can we enrich the club and can we enrich the members' knowledge by what we're doing here? This is kind of the first experiment in doing that. And also we were interested in trying to bring in some of these people we know from the OPC group that are so talented, like Gary and Tom in particular. You know, I think that'll help us to learn more from different people. And so that's kind of where my head was starting this thing, but it's kind of your group. So let's let it turn into what it needs to turn into.
I really like it. I will just speak for I would love to, once this virus thing ever gets better, start at the very beginning in how to take a really good picture, you know, a meetup somewhere. I would love to be able to do that at some point.
Okay.
I can second that. Thank you.
Bob, you named this group Street and Urban Photography. Do
That's
you want to exclude everything else, like portraits, like flowers or art?
Actually, the street and urban is just an abbreviation for the broad range that was on Gary's chart. We just don't have one good name for all of it.
We didn't want to become all encompassing on this is generally a specific group looking for a special interest in this category. So if we were going to do a portrait group, we could do a separate portrait group. You know, nature. Those are all options that we you know, that we could go with different groups. But this group specifically, we're looking at street photography and urban landscape photography.
Now, I don't have any problem if over time we say we're going to go to a certain subject matter for a couple, 3 months and then move to a different subject matter. That's fine.
What I like about this subject is I think it's kind of underrepresented in the club right now. We do a lot of nature, a lot of portraits, a lot of landscape, but we don't do a lot of street in the club. So that's why that's my interest is in that.
Okay.
Reason.
Well,
it's hard though, because it ends up falling into color, which is, you know, I almost feel like we could have like a portrait section and a you know, color just seems so broad.
Well, yeah, there's the GDCC 4 color category or 4 categories. That's always a barrier. And if you had 8 categories, we'd still want a 9th. But,
yeah.
You know, for your pictures to do well at the club and to score well, your judges are going to have to be educated into these different categories as well. Because if somebody isn't aware of street photography and their urban landscape photography and they're judging, they're going to look at it and they're not going to understand it. And you're going to get 16, 17 on your images. I know that because I've judged in these groups before and I've seen it happen. I mean, you could bring in some of the Vivian Meyer images to your club, and I'm sure they'd get 16, 17 because people would have no idea what they're about, you know, and she was one of the great photographers of the 20th century. So
yeah,
it's a matter of educating the judges as well.
Now, another thing that never happens at our club over the years that I've been there is a mechanism to teach people about tools and techniques and methods. What constitutes a good image? How do I edit for that image? How do I run Photoshop or Lightroom or some add-on? There's really no way that we historically do that. This group, as you saw what Gary did tonight, you picked up tidbits of how he edits. And if you do that enough, you'll be amazed how much you can learn about running the tools and why.
Yes.
So there's a lot of aspects to this thing.
It's kind of to try and develop your own style.
Yes, that's a good point, Kevin.
Because when I looked at the pictures that Gary did, I'm thinking, okay, I would have taken that out and that out. I'm laughing. I'm going, maybe I'm not right for street photography. But
I agree though,
maybe
because
that
I
makes
like
it
a,
perfect.
I feel like I like a tidy image. I want it to be kind of tidy, and that's not what street is.
I think seeing all these different styles and everybody's pictures will help you and give you some other options that you might see that you like.
Mhm.
And
Right.
and change your style, you know. So,
Mhm.
but
Also,
eventually, I think you need to develop what you like, and the hell with everybody else. So,
I've always found that one genre, if you learn it or learn about how to edit it or shoot it, spills over and helps you in all kinds of other areas. What you learn about artography or street or landscape or excuse me, architecture helps you very much in the landscape and portrait area. You know, these skills transcend. When it's all said and done, it's about how to see and how to edit and how to take the image technically in your camera.
And it's just fun to create. I tried a painterly look on a bird, and I thought it turned out kind of cool. It's just fun.
Well, one thing I like about the street photography is you don't really need to have good light. Like in nature or landscape, it's all about the good light. In street, it seems like you can have not necessarily good light, but if you go black and white, you can start working with contrast like you saw and make it interesting.
Textures.
Otherwise, it wouldn't have been interesting. So you're not limited to shooting in the good light. You can shoot any time of day and still get good pictures.
Exactly right.
A lot of times you'll see, like with color, you may not like the photo for whatever reason, and if you make it black and white, it just takes on a new life, you know.
Yep.
So I see people take color photos and they don't like them, they're going to delete them. You go black and white with it, and the story just comes out because people aren't looking at the photo concentrating on color. They're just looking at your photo concentrating on the beauty of the image or the story behind it. So Bob, I love that you're doing this, man, because everybody, like you said, they're not so aware in competitions about street photography and a lot of the really creative things you showed today. They just look right past, but I think everybody now might look at it a little bit different. And you have to think different when you're doing it, man. When you're out in the street pointing a camera at somebody, you have to be a little bit brave and smile, you know. And
I like to use a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
You would. Well, one of the things that I think is important is that the more we learn about different genres and different skill sets, the more we can teach the rest of the club members and the judges. So maybe we can improve the quality of some of the judging that goes on. I don't think we should try and exclude anybody's photography. You know, we have a history of being a nature club, and that's great. We're never going to lose that. But if you want to grow a club and keep it vibrant, you got to cater to the tastes of a lot of different people.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a principle that I can apply to just about every kind of photography. Like I said before, what you see when you take the picture and what the camera sees are two different things. Because the white balance can be off or the whole exposure can be off. And then, so you can try to recreate in Photoshop what you saw. That's the one. The second one is, how did you feel when you took the picture? If it was a stormy night, it was damn cold, you were freezing, you probably go with the white balance a little bit onto the cooler side, onto the bluer side. If it was a candlelight scene, you probably go, and you feel romantic, you go to the warmer side. And then for example, Mona Lisa from Da Vinci and the girl with the pearl earring from Vermeer, I'm sure that's how they felt when they painted these pictures. And then the third principle is you can go a little bit further and do a little bit the painterly look like we saw in some of these pictures. Or you can go all the way crazy and become Picasso in his late years or a Salvatore Dali. So I don't want to go that way. I'm in the middle section. I want to express the pictures how I felt when I took it, or how I feel now about it. And that applies to just about everything.
So where do we want to go for our next meeting? I mean, when it's hard to get out and shoot new stuff, but it's a good time for learning. So if you want to learn something about a specific area, this would be a good time. Just go back into your library of old pictures and start pulling things out and trying some different things. So let me know.
Well, ideally, we would like to try and learn everything that Gary knows, but we aren't going to live long enough for that. But, once we've picked his brain as much as we can, we need to also understand that we've got to be contributing. Individuals have got to say, here's something I've been working on, and show it to us, and let's critique it, and let's grow some thick skin so we can learn and get better.
Another idea maybe for people to find images of other photographers notable that they like and present those and what they like about them as examples.
Absolutely, and that kind of
That's
gets
an excellent idea. If everybody could research photographers, and maybe for next time, just come with a couple that you especially like. I think that helps everyone.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's how
Gary,
you get better, is just studying the great photographers.
no, I think
Okay.
this is good. I mean, I'm willing to go wherever you guys want to go with it.
I'm willing to follow.
Well,
Black and white, an area that we want to spend some time with. Black and white conversions.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, sure.
okay.
That seems to be the epitome of street photography these days, right?
So do you want to try and say that people should bring a few images that represent someone that they like, and that tends to be in a black and white, tends to be in a street type of environment, and we'll discuss those? Is that
Well,
where
it's
you want
easy
to
to
go?
research on the internet, and you just you find something that you like, take a screenshot of it, send it to Bob, and then next time we'll put together a little package here with folders and take a look at everyone what they like. I think that's important, finding photographers and styles that you like to inspire you to change your type of photography.
Yeah, I like that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I think it might even be good too for those of you who have sites like Flickr or SmugMug, share them, and we'll kind of rummage through each other's images or albums or whatever, and find things that we're interested in, and we can talk about them.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you find the images, just do a screenshot, grab them, and we'll talk about them.
Or a link, just from the link, I guess.
Or a link's fine too.
Yeah.
I kind of like the image review thing, and maybe it's not for the next meeting, but I think it's really helpful to talk through an image, and I mean, for me it is anyway. I don't know. I mean, and not necessarily, and not even my images. I know I kind of had a few in tonight, but to just go through other people's images as well.
Okay, the other thing we can do is if you want to send a color image, a raw file of something that you want to convert, we can take a look at that next time and do some conversions like we did tonight.
Maurice, we don't, sorry. Go ahead, Ken, you were going to say something.
Oh, no, I said that was a good deal. I think you're right.
Okay.
And Maurice, we had talked also about doing travel, specifically travel photography, and I don't know if that's. I know Ron was part of that or was interested in that. So maybe we can, rather than having a separate side group, we could maybe have a session on travel rather than trying to operate something separate from this.
Yeah, I think you can go either way on that, but.
Yeah, that sounds good. That was just kind of a subgroup on just kind of getting away from this one and doing something with travel and see where we keep tying it into some presentations at the club on that Thursday.
Well, and one of the things about travel that I wouldn't mind is that we do those, at least in the short term while we're quarantined. If we've got people who want to do travel things, let's turn them into virtual presentations for a club meeting. In fact, one of the ones that Doug and I were talking about earlier today is to, Richard Gabola has been locked up in his room for the last few weeks doing light painting. in his studio setup, and he's got a bunch of those. And maybe we could talk him into doing a program on that subject. So maybe that's an alternative to a subgroup. I'm open to anything.
I have been working on getting something for later on in the month. It may not be on Thursday, but it will be
The one with Steve?
with Steve Gettles, right?
Yeah. I think
And
that
that's
would
why
be good.
I talked to Nicole today. So, but the travel photography, I kind of looked at it as maybe 2 or 3 people doing a presentation at the club, like on that Thursday, with just showing 6 images, and let's just tell the story about 6 images.
Excellent.
I don't want to see 45, 50 images. I want to see 6 images that really tell the story of this particular location.
And have people explain the what and the why and the wherefore about those images, why they took them, why they thought they were great, etc.
Well, in terms of travel photography, it needs to show examples of where you are.
Right.
Be the key point as to there has to be some images that would designate the travel location, the location of where you are.
We could also do, and I know Greg and I have talked about this before, doing some programs, possibly even webinars on just portraiture, sort of the same kind of mindset you're bringing up, Maurice. And the more of those we do, the more we broaden the knowledge of the club members as a whole.
Well, that's no question about that. That's true, right? But I was kind of looking at something to fill in on that third that fourth Thursday, and not putting it on one person to show 50 pictures. Let 2 people show 12.
Nope, that's good.
Yeah. So and then for some questions and answers. So because there's so many people in the club that do some travel, and I don't need to see as a images. I think you can do a presentation with 6 images.
Okay, I agree.
That's a different text. So what it looks like for us for our next meeting here is we're going to look at some photographers that we like and do a couple screenshots of some of the images, and also come up with a picture that we want to convert to black and white.
Right. And one thing I think I would really like to see down the road is I'd like to have Ron talk about and show some of his images.
Yeah. Congratulations, Ron, on that one shot. It's on Facebook. It's getting published.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll tell you, this last month has been.
See that, and that's a good example of black and white portrait.
I was just laughing. I was thinking to myself, I can do travel street photography portraiture. That's like what they all are lately.
I was going to say, what's your handle? World Photographer?
Yeah, and my because you know, it's funny, when I did that, I didn't know what to make it, right? And I said mostly it's street photography, but then it seemed like all I was shooting was wildlife, so I went that route.
No, seriously, I think you got a lot you could teach us, both in this group and then as programs.
I tell you, I don't know how many people are Lightroom, but I think that's one thing that I could probably really help with.
That would be excellent, because I tell you what, I get the feeling that there's a percentage of the club that just struggles with basic editing. If you can improve their knowledge base, that would help.
Great, that would be awesome.
I would love that.
I would love that.
Well, even more is like when is Lightroom reach its limits, and when do you need to go to Photoshop? A lot of times you can do everything you need to.
I agree.
I'm probably about 90% in Lightroom, and then anything else goes to Photoshop with Topaz and all those other tools Gary was showing.
No, that, see, and again, that spills over.
But you just use what you're good at, you know? I mean, some people can just bang it out in Photoshop, where for me, Lightroom is much faster, unless I have to remove things from the image or.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that's.
I can even do some of that in Lightroom, to be honest with you. I can do a lot of removing stuff, but it's not as complex as or as good as Photoshop would be.
Yeah. Well, I think we got our assignment for next week. It sounds like you guys are interested.
Yes.
Good.
All right.
So when are we doing it?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, same thing. Does that sound good? We can change the frequency.
Sounds good.
All right. And I know that Ron and Ann got to go refresh their drinks.
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm empty. I'm empty. Actually, I haven't even touched it, so just an empty bottle sitting here from the last one.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Wait, so
Goodbye,
Bob,
folks.
are we sending the images to you, Bob, or will we just share them at the time?
Gary, how do you want to do that? You want them in
It'd
advance?
be easier if we just do it from one place. So send them to Bob and Bob send them to me, and
Okay.
you know, that way we can just go through them. The flow will be a little bit easier.
All right.
Okay.
All right, guys, it's been good.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.
You guys.
Stay
Thank you, Bob.
well.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, right. Bye-bye.
Bye.